At the celebration banquet, Lily fed my fiancé a spring roll she had already bitten into. Oscar didn't hesitate at all and ate it calmly. That night, when we got home, I proposed calling off the engagement. He rubbed his temples, his tone impatient. Just because I ate one spring roll of hers? She had already bitten it and thought it didn't taste good. So she gave it to you. I corrected calmly. Helen, you're getting more and more fussy, making a scene over something so trivial. Fine, if you want to cancel the engagement, do whatever you want. Just don't come pestering me later. He was convinced I couldn't live without him, certainty dripping from his voice. But he didn't understand, no matter how deep the love is, it can't withstand being dismissed over and over again. This time, I truly decided to turn away. Chapter 1. The next day, I talked it over with my parents and canceled the engagement. Although they were surprised, they chose to respect my decision. After that, Oscar predictably started his disappearing act again, blocking my calls, deleting me on WeChat, cutting off all contact. It was his usual Cold War tactic. He always thought I would lower my head and reach out first, just like before. But this time, as I looked at the familiar Add Friend button, I didn't press it again. 7 days later, a notice was posted in the Design Institute group chat. Tonight is Oscar's birthday party. Attendance is mandatory for everyone. Not wanting to make things difficult for my colleagues, I still went. As soon as I pushed open the private room door, I saw Oscar sitting in the seat of honor, while Lily was practically glued to his side, her lips close to his ear as she whispered. The two of them formed their own little world, laughing softly from time to time, intimate as if no one else existed. I quietly walked to a corner and sat down, drinking alone. Others began presenting their gifts one after another. I didn't participate. Before long, a shadow fell over me. I looked up. It was Oscar's impeccably handsome face, filled with impatience. Helen, he said, where's my gift? In the past, I had always prepared his birthday gifts months in advance. The most unforgettable one was when I spent nearly a year personally recreating the spaceship model from his favorite comic, Interstellar Traveler. When the lights came on, he said we would be like the protagonists of the comic, never to be separated. I believed it back then, but it turned out that forever was so short. Facing his questioning, I replied indifferently. I forgot. My coldness completely ignited Oscar's anger. Helen, are you done making a fuss? Is this tiny thing really worth dragging out for a whole week? I caught sight of the lipstick mark at the corner of his mouth, Lily's, and my stomach churned. I'm not making a fuss. Canceling the engagement is serious. Oscar's expression shifted slightly, but the moment Lily grabbed his hand, he regained his composure. Helen, don't misunderstand. Lily cut in softly. I just didn't want to waste food, so I gave it to Oscar. If it bothers you so much, next time I just won't sit at the table. I'll wait until everyone's finished eating before I touch my chopsticks. Those words immediately triggered Oscar's protective instincts. Lily, why would you say that? You deserve the best of everything in this world. The one who should leave is Helen. Why should you be the one to feel wronged? Oscar, don't be like this. Helen is just a bit sensitive. After all, she is your fiancé. You should comfort her more. Comfort her? Oscar sneered. If my family hadn't forced me into this engagement, I wouldn't have been with her at all. Nitpicking all day, utterly annoying. Lily walked up to me and patted my shoulder, pretending to be mature. Helen, honestly, this time you really are being too willful. Oscar hasn't slept well these past few days, although I think you two are incompatible. Since there's an engagement, you should still make concessions to each other. I shook her hand off. Lily, do you know what I admire most about you? It's how you can say such pretty words with a straight face while doing things like stealing someone else's fiancé. Chapter 2. The smug look on Lily's face froze instantly. Oscar slammed the table and stood up abruptly. Helen, who gave you permission to slander Lily here? Slander? I shot back. Then explain why every gift you gave me has the same version on her. Why every argument we ever had was exaggerated by her and spread throughout the company. And why she knows about the scar on your chest. That's enough. A loud slap cut me off. My ears rang, but my eyes clearly caught everyone in the private room staring at me, some with pity and sympathy, others with mockery and disgust. As the ringing slowly faded, Oscar's voice came through clearly. From today on, everyone is welcome to like the photos of Lily and me. Once they reach 1,200 likes, I'll cancel my engagement with Helen and register my marriage with Lily. With that, he grabbed Lily's hand and left. Before she walked out, Lily turned back and cast me a victor's glance. The crowd gradually dispersed. Some gloated. You brought this on yourself. Regretting it now is too late. Others tried to advise me kindly. Pride isn't that important. Go apologize quickly, or Oscar will really marry someone else. Of course I knew this was Oscar's way of forcing me to bow my head. But this time, I would rather lose everything than compromise again. The noisy private room was empty in an instant. I picked up the remaining strong liquor and downed it in one gulp, the burning liquid scorching my throat. This relationship of more than 2 years had finally come to an end, and it turned out not to be as devastating as I had imagined. If he was going to Xi Qing for a political marriage, he probably wouldn't keep pestering me anymore, right? And yet, for some reason, my cheeks were wet again. When I returned home, I began packing my luggage. I met Oscar 2 years and 3 months ago at that business banquet arranged by our families as a matchmaking alliance. Although the time wasn't long, this relationship had left behind plenty of traces. There was a lot to sort through. This crystal music box was a gift from our first date. He said the melody sounded as pleasant as my voice. I still remember him promising back then, I'll reserve all the beautiful things for Helen. This photograph was one he secretly took of me during my first visit to his studio, when I was concentrating on the blueprints. Back then, I knew nothing about architecture, yet I forced myself to study it just so we could have something in common. He laughed at me for even reading basic structural drawings upside down. I got so annoyed that I pinched his arm hard. Later, he said that moment hurt, but it was also the first time he felt his heart stir for me. Later still, we got engaged. But because we were both busy, we spent little time together. My contact with him turned into stacks of round-trip plane tickets. 2 full years, 86,000 kilometers, was the distance we ran toward each other. Back then, his eyes were filled only with me. No matter how long the journey, he never complained. My fingers brushed against the velvet box. Inside were the matching couple watches we had customized together. For him, I had given up a job opportunity at the Xi Qing headquarters and come alone to this coastal city. On the very day I arrived, he took me to have these watches made. I still remember what he said as he put the watch on my wrist. Helen, once you put on this watch, you're tied to me for life. Don't even think about leaving. Who would have thought that in the end, the one to let go first would be him? When Lily came to interview at the Design Institute, her performance was mediocre. At first, Oscar wasn't particularly attentive to her either, and I didn't take this ordinary applicant seriously. For reasons unknown to me, she was eventually specially recruited and rose step by step, from a nobody on the sidelines to Oscar's project manager. The first time I sensed something was wrong was when I discovered that the supposedly one-of-a-kind couple watch was actually on Lily's wrist. At first, when faced with my questioning, Oscar would still explain patiently and try to coax me, but gradually, all that was left was his impatience. Chapter 3. My repeated concessions and attempts to please him only made his favoritism toward Lily increasingly blatant. At Design Institute dinners, only dishes Lily liked were ordered. She only needed to be in the office 2 days a week. The rest of the time, she accompanied Oscar on trips and outings. All of her project work eventually ended up on my desk. Oscar mentioned her more and more often. What began as unconscious praise gradually turned into comparisons between me and her, criticizing me for being less considerate, less understanding than she was. Until that afternoon tea, Oscar praised the milk tea he ordered, saying it tasted great. Lily naturally said she wanted to try it. Without a second thought, he handed her the cup. She drank a large mouthful through the straw he had just used. What chilled me even more was that when he took the cup back, he continued drinking from it, right over the lipstick marks she had left behind. At that moment, it felt as if an invisible hand had clenched my heart, leaving it unbearably sour and tight. From then on, Lily's boundary crossing only escalated. Afraid he would get sunburned, she personally applied sunscreen all over his body. The lunches I prepared for him were always eaten by her first, under the excuse that she loved my cooking, after which she would have him eat the bento she made. Even the anniversary date he had promised me was cancelled because she said, "I have a headache." Whenever I showed displeasure over these things, Oscar would respond impatiently. You always make things so complicated. There's nothing between Lily and me. Don't project your own thoughts onto her. But later, even he sounded unconvincing when he said it. What broke my heart most was the formal industry association gala that required attendees to bring a companion, yet he never informed me and showed up directly with Lily. I only learned about it after people repeatedly asked whether we had already broken up. When I confronted him, he was angrier than I was. I brought Lily to help her build connections and cultivate talent for the Design Institute. How can you be so narrow-minded? That Cold War lasted a long time, so long that it nearly reached the point of no return. Until one late night, when he sent a single message, "Wife." My head hurt so much. All my carefully built resolve collapsed in an instant. And so, questioning, arguing, compromising, forgiving, the cycle restarted once again. I gently closed the watch box and threw it into the trash. Deep in the drawer was still the apology letter he once wrote because he missed my message. Back then, he truly had me in his heart. Now, the only person in his heart was Lily. I took out the letter, tore it into pieces, and let them fall into the trash. After clearing away more than 2 years of entanglement, the room suddenly felt much emptier, so did my heart. The Design Institute group chat was still flooding with messages. Photos of Lily celebrating Oscar's birthday and making him laugh. Seeing Oscar's favoritism toward her, colleagues rushed to flatter them. Oscar and Lily are a match made in heaven. If you're choosing a partner, pick someone like Lily. Definitely don't choose someone like Helen. So sensitive and suspicious. Helen only relies on her family. Lily earned everything with her own ability. I didn't want to look anymore. I called my lawyer directly and requested the withdrawal of all my investments from the Design Institute. The next day, when I returned to the institute to collect my personal belongings, I ran into Lily in my private lounge. She was wearing a sexy night dress, her legs propped up on my desk. Her belongings occupied the entire room, while all of mine had been thrown into the hallway. This lounge had been personally designed for me by Oscar. Everyone in the institute knew it, and no one dared enter it without permission. Lily's actions at this moment were nothing short of openly provoking me. I had no intention of arguing with her. I called the police. In the mediation room, Lily looked panicked. I was just helping Oscar get a document. Was it really necessary to call the police? That is my private space. I replied calmly. Did you have my permission? Entering without authorization, how is that any different from theft? Chapter 4. As soon as the words left my mouth, Lily suddenly began to sob softly. I immediately sensed something was wrong. When I turned around, Oscar was standing behind me, his face dark with anger. "Oscar," Lily threw herself into his arms, her voice trembling with tears. "I really was just helping you get a document. But Helen seems to hate me so much. She insists on accusing me of stealing. You've given me so many gifts that my apartment can't even hold them all. Why would I take her cheap, worthless things?" This lounge was the private space Oscar had given me, a return gift for the spaceship model I had recreated for him. We had shared so many tender moments here. I once believed that at least the small world could preserve the last shred of dignity in our relationship. I never expected Oscar to personally tear apart my final illusion. He gently patted Lily's back while explaining to the officers. "It's all a misunderstanding. We know each other. Sorry to trouble you." Then he turned to me, his tone icy. "Helen, how did you become like this? Acting like a resentful shrew all day long. Using your family background to bully subordinates like Lily. Does that make you feel accomplished? You really disappoint me." The accusations crashed down like hailstones. Before I could speak, Lily added softly, "Don't blame Helen. It's my fault for not thinking things through. Even if I get detained for a few days or mocked by others, it doesn't matter, as long as it doesn't affect you." Oscar tightened his grip on her hand, his eyes full of pity. "You're just too kind, that's why you're always bullied." Then he stared at me, apologized to Lily. "Right now, she entered my private space without permission. And you want me to apologize?" Lily's sobbing started again. Oscar sneered. "Your private space? That belongs to the Design Institute. Don't forget, the entire building is under my name. You only have the right to use it. If you keep this attitude, I don't mind having you detained for a few days on charges of false reporting." With that, he turned and left with Lily. His words were like poison-coated blades. stabbing straight into my heart. I thought my heart had long gone numb, yet a fine, persistent pain still spread through it. For more than 2 years, I had poured everything I had into supporting the Design Institute, believing I was building our shared future. In the end, all I got was a sentence, "You only have the right to use it." Before leaving the mediation room, Oscar coldly warned me, "The likes are already at 998. If you keep this attitude, I don't mind actually registering the marriage with Lily." Standing behind him, Lily shot me a contemptuous glance. At that moment, I suddenly saw my own misery clearly. Lily's tactics were never particularly clever. How could someone as shrewd as Oscar fail to see through them? He simply chose to indulge her. The scales in his heart had already tipped. All of this was nothing more than his way of getting rid of me. Only I had been foolish enough to keep trying to hold on. Once I understood that, the last trace of attachment in my heart finally went out. Before my departure to Xi Qing, there were always colleagues who delighted in my misfortune, sending private messages. "The likes are already at 1005. If you don't give in, you'll really lose your husband. 1100 likes now. Looks like someone's destined to be a discarded wife. You're really holding out this time. What? Did you realize you can't compete with Lily and decided to tuck your tail and run?" I blocked and deleted every one of those accounts. When the number of likes stopped at 1199, the entire Design Institute was shrouded in Oscar's oppressive low mood. No one dared to tap that final like. Just as he was calculating how to apply pressure again, the office door was slammed open. "Boss, the 1200th like has been reached." Chapter 5. The air in the office seemed to freeze. The smug look on Oscar's face stiffened. He stared hard at his assistant. His voice squeezed out through clenched teeth. "What did you say?" The assistant shuddered, raising his phone with trembling hands. "Boss, it's real. 1200 likes. Just now." Oscar's gaze swept across the screen, his pupils shrinking abruptly. Beneath the newly lit heart icon was unmistakably my profile picture. It was me, personally crowning their so-called love, delivering the 1200th like with my own hands. "Helen!" He let out a beast-like roar and spun around violently, only to see an empty hallway. I was already gone. He probably thought I would cry, make a scene, break down, run back like before, begging him to take back his words. But this time, I simply pressed the like button calmly, turned off my phone, and boarded a flight to Xi Qing. The plane pierced through the clouds, leaving far behind the coastal city that had carried more than 2 years of my love and resentment. Leaning against the window, I watched the dazzling city lights grow smaller and smaller, until they dissolved into a blurred glow. A flight attendant brought me a blanket and softly asked if I needed anything. I shook my head and thanked her quietly. My phone kept flooding with messages and missed calls. From Oscar, from Lily, from former colleagues. Oscar's messages shifted from furious accusations to disbelief, and finally into demands laced with threats. "Helen, what the hell are you trying to do? Get back here immediately. You think this will get my attention? Childish. You have 30 minutes. Take back that like right now, or deal with the consequences." Lily, meanwhile, continued playing her innocent, gentle role. "Helen, don't be impulsive. Oscar was just speaking out of anger. Please come back, everyone's worried about you." I didn't reply to a single message. I switched on airplane mode. The world finally went quiet. I never imagined that ending this relationship with my own hands could feel so light. As if a heavy shackle I'd worn for years had finally been removed, my breathing itself became easier. That like wasn't compromise. It wasn't revenge. It was a coming-of-age gift I gave myself, proof of a clean break from the past. "Oscar, you want freedom? I give it to you. You want to be openly with her? I grant you that too. From now on, we owe each other nothing." By the time the plane landed in Xi Qing, it was already late at night. My father's secretary was waiting at the exit. "Miss, the chairman and madam are waiting for you at home." I nodded and got into the car. Outside the window was a cityscape both familiar and strange. This was my home, yet I had left it for over 2 years. All for one man. When I got home, my parents didn't scold me. My mother, eyes red, simply pulled me into her arms. "It's good that you're back. That's all that matters." My father handed me a folder. "Helen, the withdrawal from the Design Institute is complete. Starting tomorrow, Take over the West City New District project. Consider it training. I looked into his eyes, filled with trust, and nodded firmly. Helen, welcome home. This time, you are no one's fiancé. You are simply yourself. Chapter 6. The news of the withdrawal of funds exploded inside the Design Institute like a bomb. Early the next morning, my phone was flooded with messages from former colleagues. Helen, did you really pull the investment? The company's accounts have already been frozen. Helen, are you insane? Oscar is about to lose it. Several partners are already demanding to terminate their contracts. You just walked away like this. But what about the hundreds of us here? Are you trying to ruin everyone's future? Every message was filled with accusations and resentment, as if I were the sole culprit who had destroyed their careers. I stared at those messages coldly, feeling nothing at all. When they laughed at me and flattered Lily, did any of them ever imagine this day would come? I didn't reply to anyone. I simply set my phone to silent and threw myself completely into the West City New District project. This was the largest real estate development my family's company had undertaken in recent years, a comprehensive plan integrating commercial zones, residential areas, and an ecological park. The difficulty was immense. My father handing it to me was both a test and a sign of trust. I buried myself in mountains of documents and blueprints, surveying the construction site during the day, working overtime in the office at night. The busyness quickly filled my life, leaving me no time to think about unpleasant people or memories. Oscar's name seemed to have become something from another century, but clearly, he had no intention of letting things end there. On the third day after I returned to Shijing, he began calling me obsessively. At first, I hung up directly. Then he started calling from different numbers. I simply blocked all unknown calls altogether. When calls no longer worked, he switched to bombarding me with text messages and every social media platform he could think of. Where the hell are you? Answer the phone right now. Pulling the investment? Who gave you the nerve? Do you have any idea how much damage you've caused? I order you to stop this stupidity immediately and put the money back. His tone was as arrogant as ever, full of commands and unquestionable dominance. He seemed utterly unaware that we no longer had any relationship, that he no longer had any right to boss me around. I ignored him completely. A few days later, the tone of his messages suddenly changed. Helen, can we talk? I'm begging you. I know I was wrong. I shouldn't have said those things. I shouldn't have hit you. Come back. I'll cut things off with Lily completely. Let's go back to how we were, okay? I still have the blueprints for the spaceship model. You said we'd be like the protagonists, together forever. Reading these belated, cheap apologies, I felt nothing but irony. If he had said these things a few months earlier, I might have been moved to tears. But now, my heart had already gone cold, frozen by that slap, sealed by those 1,200 likes. Just as I was about to block his number completely, a new message popped up. It was from Lily. Helen, it's me. Could you please let Oscar go? Let the Design Institute go? He hasn't slept for days because of you. He looks completely worn down. Even if there were misunderstandings between you two, you shouldn't take revenge in such an extreme way. What you're destroying isn't just his life's work, it's the hope of hundreds of families. I'm begging you, please show some mercy. Reading this familiar fake innocent manipulator speech made my stomach churn. I finally replied, for the first time. Not to Oscar, to her. Tell Oscar this for me. I was the one who lifted him up to the skies, and I can just as easily smash him back into the mud. He'd better prepare himself for bankruptcy and liquidation. As for you, may you and your Oscar stay together forever. In hell. Chapter 7. My reply clearly enraged them completely. Lily never replied again, but Oscar's calls came one after another like death warrants. I decisively dragged all his contact information into my blacklist. The world finally became quiet. I thought this farce would end there. I didn't expect that just 2 days later, Oscar would actually chase me all the way to Shijing. That day, I was on the construction site holding an on-site meeting with the contractors when my assistant suddenly ran over in a panic and whispered in my ear, Helen, Oscar is here. He's outside and says he has to see you no matter what. I frowned and looked up. Not far away, Oscar was leaning against a rented car. He was wearing a wrinkled suit. His hair was disheveled. Stubble had grown along his jaw. Dark circles weighed heavily under his eyes. He looked utterly haggard, nothing like the confident man he used to be. He had clearly seen me too. Ignoring the security guard's attempts to stop him, he rushed straight toward me. "Helen!" I gestured for the guards to let him through, then turned to the project manager beside me. "Pause the meeting for 30 minutes. I walked toward a secluded corner. Oscar followed closely behind. "You finally agreed to see me," he said hoarsely, his eyes bloodshot as he grabbed my wrist. "Helen, come back with me. I know I was wrong. I really know I was wrong." He was gripping me so tightly that my wrist ached. I forcefully shook him off and looked at him coldly. "I don't think there's anything left for us to talk about. If you're here because of the withdrawn investment, let me be clear, impossible. It's not about the money," he argued urgently. "I came for you, Helen. Without you, I can't do anything right. The company is in chaos. Those people don't listen to me at all. Only when you're there can I feel at ease. So you're not here to apologize." I let out a mocking laugh. "You're here to drag me back to clean up your mess. Oscar, you really think too highly of yourself. What makes you think I'd go back to fixing things for you again, just to wait for your next betrayal?" His face turned deathly pale. His lips trembled as if he wanted to say something, but no words came out. "I remember what you said," I repeated calmly, every word sharp as a blade, not only stabbing him, but cutting once more into wounds I thought had already healed. "You said if it weren't for your family forcing you, you'd never have gotten engaged to me. You said I was petty and annoying. So why are you turning back now to look for this nagging woman again? Where's your Lily? Wasn't she the considerate, understanding one? Why didn't she help you manage the company?" "Don't mention her," Oscar snapped irritably, a flash of disgust crossing his face. "When the company fell into chaos, all she knew was dragging me out shopping for bags. She couldn't help with anything and only made things worse. I'm done with her, Helen. The one I've always loved was you. I was just blinded. That's enough." I didn't want to hear another word of his hypocritical excuses. "Oscar, what you love is the version of me who obeyed you unconditionally, who gave endlessly, who brought you benefits and resources. You've never loved anyone but yourself. Now that the Design Institute's cash flow is broken, now that my family's support is gone, that's when you suddenly remember how good I was?" I took a step back, completely widening the distance between us. "For the sake of our past acquaintance, I'll give you one piece of advice. Apply for bankruptcy liquidation as soon as possible. You might still reduce your debts. As for me, I'm going back to my meeting." I turned and walked away without a trace of hesitation. "Helen!" he screamed hysterically behind me. "You'll regret this. You will regret this." I didn't turn around. Regret? The only thing I regret is giving up everything in Xijing for him in the first place. And now, I'm simply correcting a mistake. Chapter 8. Oscar's appearance was like a stone thrown into a lake. It stirred a few ripples. Then the surface quickly returned to calm. My life settled back onto its proper track. Under my leadership, the City West New District project advanced steadily and methodically. My father was extremely satisfied with my decisive and efficient management style and gradually entrusted me with more of the group's core operations. It was through work that I met Gabriel. He was the head of one of our partner companies, a gentle, composed, and dependable man. He was a few years older than Oscar, lacking that aggressive sharpness Oscar carried, but possessing instead a reassuring maturity that put people at ease. Our collaboration was exceptionally smooth. Whenever I presented an initial concept, he would grasp my intent almost instantly and respond with professional, well-considered suggestions. We often stayed late into the night in conference rooms, debating fine details of the design. The way he looked at me was filled with appreciation and respect, something Oscar had never once given me. Gradually, we moved from colleagues to friends who could share personal thoughts. He knew about my past, yet never pressed for details. When I showed signs of exhaustion, he would quietly place a cup of hot coffee in front of me. When I worked late into the night, he would send a simple message, "Don't forget to rest." That perfectly measured sense of distance made me feel comfortable. That evening, to celebrate the successful completion of the project's first phase, the company hosted a celebration banquet. As the project's chief director, I naturally became the center of attention. I wore a tailored silver gown, holding a glass of wine, moving with ease among the guests. Gabriel stood beside me, subtly deflecting many unnecessary social obligations on my behalf. You look radiant tonight, he said with a soft smile. It seems you've completely stepped out of the shadow of the past. I smiled back. I have you to thank for being both mentor and friend. We exchanged a knowing smile. The atmosphere was just right. Then, an uninvited guest shattered the harmony. Oscar appeared in the banquet hall, seemingly out of nowhere. He looked even more haggard than the last time I saw him at the construction site. His suit hung loosely on his frame, as though he'd lost significant weight. He stared straight at me, his expression tangled with regret, resentment, and a trace of unhinged jealousy. He saw Gabriel beside me. He saw the unspoken understanding between us. Holding a glass of wine, he staggered toward us. People instinctively moved out of his way. Helen, he spoke, his voice hoarse. And this gentleman is... His gaze landed on Gabriel, filled with scrutiny and hostility. Without a word, Gabriel stepped slightly closer to me and politely extended his hand. Hello, I'm Gabriel, Helen's business partner. Oscar ignored the offered hand. He kept staring at me, as if demanding an answer. I didn't even bother explaining. I spoke calmly. Mr. Oscar, it seems you've come to the wrong place. This is an internal company banquet. You are no longer one of our partners. Helen, do you really have to talk to me like this? Pain surfaced in his eyes. And your wrist, where's that watch? I instinctively glanced at my wrist. It was bare and unmarked. That watch, the one I once treasured, engraved with our initials, had long been thrown into the trash, along with that humiliating past. I threw it away. I said simply, thrown away? He murmured as if in disbelief. How could that be? That was it was just a watch. I cut him off. Thrown away means thrown away. If you have nothing else. Mr. Oscar, please excuse yourself. Don't disturb us. With that, I looped my arm through Gabriel's and turned away, walking off without sparing Oscar another glance. I could feel that burning stare boring into my back like needles. Yet in that moment, there was no sense of revenge, only a quiet, final sense of closure. Oscar, you have finally tasted what it feels like to be ignored, to be discarded. Chapter 9. After that banquet, Oscar completely disappeared from my world. Later, I heard fragments of news about him from friends within the industry. The Design Institute ultimately failed to hold on and declared bankruptcy. He was burdened with enormous debt. All properties and luxury cars under his name were auctioned off. The Oscar who once ruled the coastal city with ease lost everything overnight. As for Lily, just before the company collapsed, she siphoned off the last remaining liquid funds from the company's accounts and vanished without a trace. At last, he saw with his own eyes the true face of the woman he had once defended at all costs. The price of that realization was his entire career and his dignity. When these updates reached me, I was sitting with Gabriel, making final adjustments to the ultimate planning model for the City West New District. Sunlight streamed through the massive floor-to-ceiling windows, coating the entire model in a warm golden glow. What are you thinking about? Gabriel's voice pulled me back. I shook my head and smiled lightly. Nothing much, just thinking that some things really are self-inflicted. He didn't press further. He handed me a cup of warm water and pointed to one corner of the model. I think the green coverage here could still be increased to create a true urban green lung. I nodded and immediately shifted back into work mode. I agree. We can introduce a vertical greening system and make use of the building facades as well. Our lives were busy and fulfilling. Occasionally, I would still think of Oscar. I remembered how he once hugged me from behind while I worked late, saying, "You've worked so hard." I remembered how he once ran all over the city just to buy me my favorite desserts as a surprise. Those moments of warmth had been real, but in the end, they were completely eroded by the betrayal and harm that followed. A month later, the City West New District project officially broke ground. At the groundbreaking ceremony, I stepped onto the stage as the project's chief director to deliver a speech. Standing beneath the spotlight and looking out at the dense crowd below, I felt a surge of emotion. At that moment, my phone vibrated once. Only after the ceremony ended did I check it in the lounge. It was a text message from an unfamiliar number. Helen, I'm sorry. Just 5 simple words. No greeting, no signature. But I knew it was him. That apology, delayed far too long, had finally arrived. Yet to me, it meant nothing anymore. I didn't reply. I didn't delete it either. I simply stared at the message quietly until the screen dimmed on its own, just like the relationship between us, long extinguished, never to light up again. Gabriel knocked and walked in, holding a coat in his hand. It's windy outside. Don't catch a cold. He naturally draped the coat over my shoulders, his movements gentle. I looked up at him. His eyes held a warm, easy smile. What would you like for dinner tonight? I've made a reservation to celebrate our success. Sure, I smiled and nodded, slipping my phone back into my bag. The past had been turned into a page already, and my future was only just beginning. As we walked out of the lounge, brilliant sunlight and lively voices greeted us. I took a deep breath. The air was filled with the scent of renewal and hope. Side by side with Gabriel, I walked down the steps toward a brand new future rising before us. Behind me, that text message lay quietly in my phone, like a gravestone, burying my entire past. Chapter 10. 1 year later, at the Su Qing International Convention and Exhibition Center, the Global Future Habitat Architecture Design Summit was underway. As the group's chief architect and the chief designer of Sky City, the Western New District project that had broken ground a year ago, I stood at the main podium of the summit. Below me sat top architects, real estate tycoons, and media reporters from all over the world. Camera flashes went off incessantly, illuminating the entire venue like daylight. I wore a sharp white suit, my long hair neatly tied back, calm and confident. The design philosophy of Sky City originates from the harmonious coexistence between humanity and nature. My voice, carried through the microphone, echoed clearly throughout every corner of the hall. On the massive screen behind me played a time-lapse video showing the project's transformation, from barren land to towering buildings wrapped in lush greenery. Lines that once existed only on blueprints had now become tangible reality. The presentation was a tremendous success. During the final QA session, I spotted Gabriel sitting in the front row, smiling at me, his eyes filled with pride and admiration. Over the past year of fighting side by side, our relationship had long surpassed that of mere friends. He had given me ample respect and space, as well as the most steadfast support. After the summit came a grand celebration reception. Holding a glass of champagne, Gabriel and I conversed with several internationally renowned architectural masters. Suddenly, I felt a familiar gaze land on me. Instinctively, I followed the line of sight, and in an inconspicuous corner of the reception hall, I saw a figure both familiar and strange. It was Oscar. He was dressed in an obviously ill-fitting waiter's uniform, holding a tray and collecting used glasses from guests. His hair was cut very short. He looked thinner and darker, his face marked by exhaustion and numbness, as though life had ground down all his edges. If not for his eyes, I might not have recognized him. Our gazes met in midair for just 1 second. A storm erupted instantly in his eyes: shock, shame, regret, pain, emotions intertwined in a complexity beyond words. He instinctively tried to dodge, but his body stiffened in place. Even the tray in his hands wobbled slightly. I merely looked at him calmly, without the slightest ripple in my heart. No hatred, no pity. He was no different from any other stranger in the room, just a passerby irrelevant to my life. Gabriel seemed to sense my reaction. He followed my gaze, then immediately understood. He said nothing, only gently took my hand. Warmth and steadiness flowed from his palm. I smiled faintly at him and withdrew my gaze. I raised my glass toward the architect opposite me and resumed the conversation. My voice steady, my smile composed, as though the brief interruption had never occurred. I did not look at Oscar again. I knew he was still there, watching me under the spotlight, surrounded by people, radiant and confident, watching Gabriel at my side, watching our intertwined hands. Perhaps this was a punishment he would never escape for the rest of his life. When the reception ended, Gabriel and I walked side by side out of the resplendent convention center. The night sky over Su Qing was exceptionally clear, stars scattered across it. It's all in the past now, Gabriel said softly. I nodded, leaning against his shoulder. It's all over. Yes, it was all over. The Helen who once threw herself recklessly into love, who humbled herself into the dust, was already dead. What lived on was a brand new me, stronger, more independent, and finally knowing how to love herself. As for Oscar, He was an expensive lesson in my life. And now, that lesson had finally ended. Our lives had long since diverged onto completely different paths. Ahead of me lay the stars and the sea. His world would never intersect with mine again.